The magnificent palace doors opened abruptly, with force. Inside the decorated room, the throne room, sat a young emperor. His green, scaly face was emotionless up until this moment. Now there was definite anger in his expression. "Who dares to barge into the throne room uninvited? I'll have you executed!" He shouts at the perpetrator, not putting into account that the guards would have stopped anyone from stepping close to those doors without permission. Well, anyone except for one single person. A veteran and esteemed military man, a brilliant general, an uncle. The man who stood in the throne room now, taller even than the guards, his face scarred with missing scales. Being blind in one eye and in retirement, long past his prime, has not stopped him from adorning his military uniform. "Nephew, you are making a mistake," the man said with a stern tone as if lecturing a child. "Insolent fool!" The young emperor replied with vitriol. "You dare to barge into the throne room unannounced and then proceed to insult me, the emperor? Haven't your years of military service taught you about the basics of royal courtesy? I have never expected you to be such a spoiled brat. I would have even turned a blind eye to all your tomfoolery if it wasn't for this," the old man said. "Guards, take him away. I have important business to attend to," the emperor said, gesturing with his hand that they throw him out. But unlike in any other case where the guards would do so without hesitation, this time they seemed hesitant, looking at each other as to who will be the first to act upon the order. "Are you deaf? Take him away now!" the emperor shouted, his voice reverberating through the throne room. One of the guards stepped forward, but before he could make so much as another step, the old man looked at him, stared at him, with no emotion whatsoever. "Stand down, soldier," he said with a calm tone. The soldier stopped in his tracks. Silence befell the room. "You, all right. Uncle, what is the reason for your unceremonious visit?" the young emperor asked. "Do you understand what you have ordered is not only breaking a pact, but is the sole decision that will bring this nation down? You will destroy it, all of it," the old general said, his sternness and stoic stance not leaving him for a moment. "Oh, is it about the so-called humans? That little puny race of apes? You seek to protect them?" the emperor said in a mocking tone. "I am not here to protect them. I am here to protect this nation and its people," the old man said as if reciting that very sentence for the millionth time. "You are aware that they haven't been at war for 50 cycles? Or 93 of their years? I've even given them the time of day to learn their little calendar." The emperor raised his finger as if learning the enemy's calendar is an achievement to boast about. "Their fleets are nothing compared to ours. Their army is ceremonial, nothing else but a show of power where none exists," the emperor said once more mockingly. The old general stared at him. He squinted his eyes. "My nephew, if you have learned about the enemy so much, then tell me about the wars they waged before, their tactics, the composition of their armies. Tell me about the humans. What are they like? Have you ever seen a human in person?" the old general asked his nephew whilst leaning forward. He looked at him inquisitively. "Well," the emperor began, "they lost many wars. They won some. But it was always known in advance they would win. It is obvious when you see the statistics, when you look at the numbers, the technological disparity. Our fleets are more advanced than theirs by every metric. It has been proven. Intelligence does not lie. And best of all, we outnumber them," the emperor said, this time trying to give a serious answer to his uncle. "You did not answer my question," the old man said. "You know, there is a quote from a human general who lived a long time ago. It goes like this: if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Now, my nephew, you have proven to know neither yourself nor the enemy. The conclusion, then, is rather simple," the old man said. The emperor stared at him in shock, his face giving the expression that he has been surprised and utterly destroyed by the retort, before bursting out laughing. "You," the emperor said in between coughs, "you come here to enlighten me about military matters and then," he snickers, "you tell me a human quote.
You have chosen the wrong career path, Uncle. You would have become a great comedian.
You have not seen war. You have not seen death. You have not seen suffering. I am not here to entertain you. I am here." The old man paused, closing his eyes and bowing his head to the ground, before lifting it back up. "I will not let you declare war on the Terran Federation, because you will only bring the aforementioned war, death, and suffering, and it will all be for nothing. You won't let me, the Emperor, do as I please?" The young Emperor said. "Do you know what you have just said qualifies as treason of the highest order?" "Yes, I know. But I am not here to give orders to an emperor. I am here to lecture my nephew and to stop him from making a mistake that will leave millions dead. Guards, please just take him away," the Emperor said with an irritated tone. "The humans have never lost a damned war," the old man shouted. "Never lost? I'm pretty sure they have. They have just been lucky for the wins." The Emperor replied, "You do not know history well at all. They did lose wars, but look at any empire or nation that had attacked them. They won, some of them, but all collapsed soon thereafter. Humans fight with such ferocity that it would be better to have them as allies, not enemies. I know that you seek glory and more space for our people, but we have enough. Even if you were to win, it would come at a cost so great that it could never be repaid. Not even the war of the heavens would come close to the brutality." "Uncle, my dear uncle, you are embarrassing yourself," the Emperor replied with fake empathy. The old general looked at his nephew. His eyes became wide. His stoic expression gave way to that of anger. "You idiotic brat! Do you understand that you will destroy everything your father built? Do you know what he sacrificed to have peace? Do you know what I sacrificed so that this nation does not burn?" The Emperor simply looked at his uncle with an indifferent expression. "Guard!" He pointed to one of the guards, who stepped forward. "Send the message that all available troops be mobilized to the border of the Terran Federation. We are going to war." The guard bowed and began walking toward the palace doors to relay the message. Before he could come close to the doors, he was grabbed by the old general. "You are not going anywhere," the old man said. "Guards, take him away. He is impeding the relay of a royal decree." The Emperor said this time the guards did not hesitate. They came forward and grabbed the old man. He struggled, but despite his large stature, his body was old. He was weak. "What are you doing? Are you all insane?" He shouted, "Nephew, what have you done?" The old man now had no anger in his voice. Rather, it was desperation. It was pleading. "They know that you are coming. They are listening. They know themselves. They know us." He was being dragged across the floor, coming closer to the palace doors. "Our people have suffered enough. Have you got no heart, nephew? Please!" The palace doors opened, and he was dragged out. "You don't know what you are doing. You do not know what they are like." The doors started slowly closing. "I fought with them then, 50 cycles ago, the war of heaven. They are—" His voice was silenced, and the doors closed shut. Silence was once more present in the throne room. The young Emperor sighed deeply. "Advisor Kamaz," the Emperor said. Out of the shadows, a figure appeared. His face was covered in a mask. "Everything is according to plan?" the Emperor asked. "Oh yes, my lord, everything is going exactly to plan. I have sent the message to the generals. Tomorrow everything is ready. The humans won't know what hit them," the figure said. "I hope so. I'm looking forward to seeing their fleets dissolve and burn." The Emperor said with a smile, "Oh, they will, my lord. They will burn." The dark figure said, "I can already smell the ashes." The stale and dry air, the dry breaths and heaves of an old man. He sits in a prison cell, sitting on the cold and hard ground. This cell unfitting for a member of the royal family, let alone a national hero. Though long past are the days of his greatness. He had enough glory in his life. He was tired. He is not the man who once commanded armies and fleets, the man who led his nation to victory against all odds, the man who helped create an empire that he believed would stand the test of time. But now he sits there, unable to accept what was happening, unable to believe it, just like that all of his and his brother's work was to be undone. All the sacrifices of his friends, his comrades, and countrymen was going to be thrown away. He reminisced on days long past. He remembered the days when they, the Phrygians, only inhabited 4 systems. He remembered the rivalry forged with the humans. He remembers when he saw them as worthy enemies. He remembers when the System League attacked under the pretense of reunification, clinging to some sort of golden age that was eons ago. He remembers when the human and Phrygian hands clasped together, enemies who would have ripped each other apart now fighting shoulder to shoulder against slavery, against extinction. He remembers the war of heaven when the ships blotted out suns, when planets were grounded to dust, when billions perished. He was there. He saw it with his own eyes, felt it on his own skin. He knew what it meant. He did not want to see it again. Never again. He fought not to conquer what was in front of him, but to protect what is behind him. He bleeds so that future generations don't need to. How foolish I am to say that I was all of that. I still am. He thought to himself, his fists clenched with righteous fury. He did not blame his nephew. He knew something else was at play, though he knew he could not save him. I drew a deep breath, then exhaled slowly, calming himself down. He looked at the electric cuffs put on his hands. It is impossible to break out of them. A titanium alloy, which even an industrial saw can't cut through, and an electronic lock that could be unlocked with a key, and the identification of the one who unlocks it. But he knew these cuffs well, and the guards overlooked one thing when patting him down. His medals are not only for show. He always prided himself on being ready for any situation. This was no exception. He grabbed one of his medals as if fixing them on his uniform. But instead, he was extracting a small pin from it. It was as thin as paper, nearly invisible. But it was heavy, at least heavier than one would expect from such a small pin. "Guard," he said with a defeated tone. The guard in front of his cell pressed a button on a panel next to the cell door, activating the microphone. "What?" the guard said simply. "I would like some water," the old man said. The guard was silent for a moment before replying, "Can't you go drink yourself? The water fountain is right there." The guard pointed to the other corner of the cell where the water fountain was. I don't have the strength. I'm sorry. Could you please bring me some water?" the old man said weakly. The guard sighed and looked around. "Oh, all right. Give me a moment. Don't do anything funny," the guard said. He then deactivated the microphone. The old man could no longer hear him, but he saw him speak into his helmet microphone. He was probably calling for someone to stand watch outside. After a few moments, another guard came down the hallway, and the old man could see him chat with the first guard for a few moments. He saw the second guard look at him. He nodded at him. Then he lowered one hand from his rifle and made specific and deliberate hand gestures with his 6 fingers. The old man recognized them. He smiled briefly. The doors unlocked, and he could now hear the outside. The first guard entered the cell and grabbed a cup from a small table inside the room. He went to the water fountain and filled it with water. Once he came close to the old man, he knelt down and tried to hand over the cup of water. The old man just looked at him, his hands resting in between his legs. "Do I have to?" the guard asked. The old man simply nodded and said, "I apologize," under his breath. The guard pressed the cup to the old man's lips and he began drinking. "By the gods, General Crifter and Ryded Perendian, I joined the army looking up at you. Now here I am looking down at you, helping you drink water because you have no strength to do it yourself," the guard said with a condescending tone. As the old man drank, he put the small pin into an extremely small hole in the cuffs. It is basically invisible to an average observer. It would be very difficult to get it on the first try because of the small size of both the pin and hole. But the old General Crifter's hands were steady as ever. The cup left Crifter's lips. He drank the cup dry. "I again must apologize," Crifter said. "Oh, no need," the guard replied. "Not for that," Crifter said. The moment the last vowel left his mouth, he pressed the pin into the hole, disrupting the electric current and unlocking the cuffs. Within a blink of an eye, he punched the guard in the head, stunning him. and then he grabbed the rifle from the stunned guard. The guard quickly got back to his feet. "What the?" Before he could finish his exclamation, the other guard used the stock of his rifle to hit him directly into the face, knocking him out. Crifter nodded to the guard and got straight to the point. "Cameras? They're on loop, sir." "Excellent. I need to get out of here. Try to stop this from escalating into a damn war," Crifter said. "I agree, sir. There's a ship ready to leave for orbit." The guard was cut off. "No, it'll take too much time, and I must stay here. Any other options? Come on, we're running out of time." "Well, the old drainage system. I can take you to the nearest entrance." "Good. If there are any more of you, tell them to wait for me at the exit. We need to get organized, and we need to be quick. Lead the way." "Yes, sir." Sector 7, border of the Phrygian Empire and Terran Federation. Capital ship Arvinid Gwitch, 1709 hours Earth time, EST. "What's up with the abrupt training exercise?" a red-scaled Phrygian soldier said while eating on his bunk bed. "I don't know. There were no scheduled exercises for at least a third of a cycle. And if it was suddenly rescheduled, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have half the damn fleet involved." Another green-scaled soldier said, sitting opposite the first soldier. "Half the fleet? I heard that the army was also mobilized. Some kind of combined arms training? For what?" the red-scaled one said. "Probably. We're quite close to the border as well. By the gods, why on the border with the humans of all places? We have like at least a dozen empty systems where we can shoot as much as we please," the green-scaled one said. "What do you think? Are we going to war with the humans?" the red-scaled one said, putting down his plate. "War? With the humans?" The green-scaled one leaned in. "Are you insane? First off, they are basically our allies. Well, not officially. But we're buddies despite the bad blood between us. We were allies in the War of Heaven. I didn't hear any news about some escalation. Trade, while it is limited, is going fine. My grandfather lives on a station near the border, actually, and he met a few human traders. Fine folk, he says." The green-scaled soldier replied. "I don't know, man. It all seems—" The red-scaled soldier thought of a good word to describe it, but the green-scaled one broke his train of thought. "Listen, it's nothing. There was no war or tension for the past 50 damn cycles. We do whatever the higher-ups want from us, then we go home." Yeah, I guess you're right," the red-scaled soldier replied with uncertainty in his voice. After a few minutes of chit-chat, they heard an announcement from the speakers all across the ship. "All personnel, prepare for warp entry. I repeat, all personnel prepare for warp entry." The two soldiers looked at the speakers, then at each other. "Warp?" the red-scaled one said. "Where are we pointing the thrusters?" the green-scaled one asked. The red-scaled one was silent for a few seconds before replying. "I think... yeah, from the last I saw our position." The green-scaled stared at his comrade, his mouth agape. "Shit, I need to call my parents." Sector 7, border of the Phrygian Empire and Terran Federation. Capital ship, Arvinid Gwitch. Control tower. 2 minutes earlier. An admiral was sitting in his command chair, anxiously looking at his panel every few minutes while the rest of the personnel obliviously worked like ants around him. "Check weapons status again," the admiral said. "Sir, we already checked 3 times. All is positive," one of the personnel said, confused. Just do it again. That's an order," the admiral replied. The light green female just nodded before going ahead to check the status of the weapons for the 4th time. As the moments ticked by, tension was building up. No one knew why, except for the admiral himself. Just as he was about to ask for status, his panel lit up. He saw an incoming call from the Emperor himself. He quickly put on his earphones and answered. "His Majesty's Admiral Hasgurn at your service," the admiral said as quietly as he could, but he could feel the looks of his crew. They heard him all right. "Hasgurn, Admiral, I call you to see if you finally managed to ready yourselves for the operation. The rest of the fleet is ready. You as the avant-garde had to be ready first. What's taking so long?" The young Emperor said with frustration in his voice. "My Emperor, we are doing one last check before—" The admiral was cut off. "I do not care! I need you to be ready at a moment's notice," the Emperor shouted. The Admiral winced at the sudden change of tone in the Emperor's voice. Yes, Your Majesty, the Admiral said. Stop the check, the Admiral exclaimed. Your Majesty, we're waiting for your green light, the Admiral said. Excellent. You may proceed with the operation. Show the arrogant humans a taste of Findian shock combat, the Emperor said. Yes, Your Majesty, the Admiral said. He pressed a button on his panel before speaking. This is Admiral Hasgorn to all ships in the 1st, 2nd, 7th, 10th, 16th, and 19th Royal Flotilla. Prepare engines for warp speed. Destination Sector 7, 233,803. Sector 7, Terran Federation, Achilles Station, 5 minutes earlier. Sir, we're getting some strange readings, a man said, sitting on a panel surrounded by screens showing various graphs. What is it? Where is it? An older man asked as he leaned on the screens, his vision going from one to another. He didn't exactly understand what he was seeing. Sir, the sharp increase in activity we saw 2 days ago stopped rising. The man on the panel said, That's on the border with kobolds, right? The Frindians? The older man said. Correct. We suspect that it might be a military exercise, but the amount seems excessive. We would have also been informed by the Frindian government in advance, which we were not. Our estimates vary, but there might be at least 1,200 ships on the border in Sector 7. We just got info from Sector 8 that they also see the same thing. The man said, his voice almost robotic. They ain't gonna attack, aren't they? The older man chuckled as if telling a joke. We're in a non-aggression pact. But this could be an international incident. I don't know. I'll inform the government back on Earth and see what they'll say about this. Continue to monitor the situation. The older man continued. Yes, sir. The man replied in the same monotone voice. Moments later, just as the older man was going toward the exit, another person entered the room, a rather tall and lanky man in a black suit. Government, the older man thought to himself. The tall, lanky man introduced himself and then asked, You are Trevor Macaulay, correct? Yes, that's me. What do you need? Trevor replied. Then this is for you. The man in the black suit handed over an envelope with large red letters reading, Urgent. Trevor scratched his graying hair as he looked at the envelope, then promptly opened it up right then and there. In the envelope was a piece of paper. Trevor's eyes jumped back and forth as he read the paper, his eyes progressively getting wider. He murmured something to himself. Hayashi, Trevor exclaimed. A short Asian man peered above a computer screen on the other side of the room. Yeah, he replied. We need to increase readiness in Sector 7 and 8. This isn't good, Trevor said. What do you mean? Why? Hayashi replied. Kid, the spike in activity, Trevor said when he was cut off by a message on his phone. He got it out and read it. Shit, he said through his teeth. Listen, everyone. I need all available units in the area to mobilize. We are in DEFCON 2. I repeat, I need all units mobilized. We are facing possible intrusion on our territory by a large armed force, Trevor yelled. Everyone in the room went silent, probably from shock. What the fuck are you all staring at? Get to work, he shouted. Everyone was put out of their temporary trance, out of their disbelief, and began to frantically do their jobs. Sir, the man on the panel monitoring the activity on the border yelled, this time with obvious urgency in his voice. What's the situation, Schmidt? Trevor ran across the room to Schmidt, looking at the screens. He could see an abrupt change in the graphs. It wasn't good. There are ripples in space that can only be... Wait. Warp. These are warp marks. A lot of them, Schmidt said, now with evident fear in his otherwise monotone voice. They are going in en masse. Fucking hell. Trevor raised his head and looked around. He knew all too well that Achilles Station is going to be among the first attacked. And that attack was going to happen soon. Very soon. They only had a few hours max until the wrath of the Findian fleet was laid upon them. Ladies and gentlemen, he began with an authoritative voice. From this moment forward onward, we are officially in a state of war with the Frindian Empire. In a few hours, it is extremely likely this station and the space around it will become a battlefield. I suggest you prepare and call any loved ones to inform them of the situation. Sir, What do we do now? One voice from the room asked. Trevor looked at all his crew, his friends, and his comrades. Their defenses are limited, and their armaments are not enough to stave off a major offensive. We hold, no matter the cost.